thank you, Amanda, for joining me. And I do appreciate you giving up your time today.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure.
And I will just hang on. I'm a bit flustered now. Okay. So, young Amanda, she's an author of Divine, Messy Human. It's a spiritual guide to prioritizing internal truth over external influence. Kinesiologist. She's a mentor. She's an archetypical life coach, and she is a mother, plus much, much more. She's an amazing human. She's a recovering people pleaser and self-flagellator. She walks the path straddling the divine and messy daily, always growing, developing, and learning new ways of being. She hopefully one day will leave the earth better than how she found it. And that is probably it more. That is my hope too, that I've left my mark on the world in a good way, and that people will have been happy to have known me, and I've brightened up their life in some way. Amanda, the floor is yours, my dear, and I look forward to you sharing with us simple steps for quantum leaps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I will. I just did some basic slides, so I will chuck those on because I have it here. Where's my little play symbol? Here we go. There we are. So yes, I often talk about, I guess to start with, how spirituality and business mix. So people think that these are two completely separate ideas, and they're not. We can't separate our mind, body, and spirit. And I think the more that we tap into and key into our spiritual self, the more we connect into the hearts and souls of our clients, of whoever it is that we are serving, whether that be the products that we're just, selling to customers, or whether that be the, the clients that we're serving. I think that the more we get in touch with that spirituality, the more we just connect on a deeper level, and it does enrich our business. So I'm going to start very, very simply here with quantum physics. And it's much, much easier than it sounds. I absolutely promise you. So the statistic that I absolutely love is that according to quantum physicists, the universe is made up of approximately 4% physical matter. So when we're looking at this human meat suit that we're walking around in, this physical body of ours, it's 4% of the picture. And why is that important? Because we need to understand the other 96% to really be able to tap into the wonder, the awe, and the beauty of our clients and our potential clients. Yes.
Your screen's not showing, it's just black.
Oh, it says it's showing on mine. It says you're screen sharing and it's live.
I don't know.
Oh, let me just see if I can. Oh, now I've lost my mouse. See, this is the messy part. Let me press escape and see if I can find my mouse now.
There we are.
Is that better? Can you see it now?
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, there we go. Can you see it and this quantum physics page? What about if I do to this?
Did you share down the bottom? Did you click the two little boxes?
I have, yes.
Oh.
Okay, so maybe we're just going to have to go through without the slideshow then. We're just going to have to use
it's working
this.
Now.
It mustn't like the slideshow bit for some reason, and that's okay. Like I say, that's the messy part. So according to quantum physicists, our physical body is 4%. So when we're looking at all of the other ways that we can tap into our clients or put our love and attention into the products, you've got all of these other aspects of self, and there's so many more. I mean, obviously it's only our imagination of those different aspects, that stops it. You know, we've got ourself in all of the different roles we play as well, if we want to start thinking about those aspects of self. So I am, you know, a mother, a partner, a daughter, a sister, a friend. So we have all of these aspects of self, as well as our emotional, mental, spiritual, relational, etc., etc. And I think that is a really beautiful thing just to keep in mind when we're working with anybody. So I love the fact that alchemy is all chemistry. What we're looking to do is transmute, transform, and transcend states of being, taking the lead of our experience and transmuting it into golden opportunities and new manifestations of wonder and awe within our lives. And that really works again on all levels. When I look at doing my personal and spiritual development work, I am taking those things that my body stores as trauma, and I am turning them into opportunity. I am turning them into a level of self-knowledge and self-awareness that helps me expand into that next level. And it's a beautiful, beautiful process. And what it's done, especially for me, both in business and in every area of my life, going back to that previous slide, is this ability to connect in a very, very different way with those around me, and to love and accept even the unresourceful behaviors that I display and that others display as well. It's given me a greater sense of grace and compassion and empathy for those around me, as well as myself, of course, because we need to turn that external inside as well. So here are the 6 simple steps that I'm going to talk you through today. We've got curiosity and questioning, the power of language, emotional fluency, boundaries and self-compassion, balancing of opposing principles, and self-responsibility. And they really are very, very simple steps. And what I want you to think is that when we implement simple tactics in our life, even if they are only 1% changes, imagine cumulatively how that 1% changes. And all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, you're on a completely different path. A month later, you're on a completely different path. 6 months, 12 months. It is those cumulative 1% changes that we stick to that become habits of the highest order, not our, the habits that we all have as humans, but those that really enhance our capacity to connect in this world is just super, super powerful. So let's get on to curiosity and questioning. This is that part where we want to let our inner toddler run wild, because I find that the more questions I have, the less answers I have, and that is actually the best way for me to exist in this world. Because what it does is it allows me to operate from a curiosity perspective rather than a more fixed mindset. How could I do that? What could happen if I did that? Who might buy this? Who am I trying to connect to? Asking lots and lots and lots of questions. And the more questions you ask, the better questions you end up asking, which is equally magical. And it allows us then to really dive deep into what we are trying to achieve and allow space, once we've asked those questions, for the answers to drop into us. It may not be an immediate answer coming to us, but if we throw the questions out there, it allows a chance for our subconscious to start taking over and start seeing some of the guidance that is around us, whether that be, I remember looking for some marketing ideas and I drove past a billboard and I didn't even remember it ever being there before. And what it said on that billboard, I can't even remember the words now, but it was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Or I might walk along the beach and just catch a few words of a conversation and go, I needed that. And that's the answer to that question I was asking myself earlier. And then I'll ask more questions about what I'm learning. So it's really, really important. The other question that I suggest to all of you to get more practiced asking is, what's in my highest good right now? Now, the beauty of asking that is sometimes we're not going to get the answer that we would like. Sometimes it's the answer we need. And it can be hugely powerful. When I ask myself what's in my highest good right now, I know that that can never be detrimental to anybody else around me, because otherwise it wouldn't be in the highest good. Because the way I look at the world is that we are all interconnected. Our energy fields are all intermingled. We are all part of that oneness, that collective conscience. And also we are unique expressions of it. So the way I interact with the world will not be the same as Rose does, or the same of any of you watching will be. It will be a different facet. It will be a different harmony. It will be a different expression. And embracing that and asking yourself, what's in my highest good right now, brings some real magic in. And it also helps with self-care. You know, I had a day a few weeks back where I had a session that I was doing with a girlfriend. I was a guinea pig in one of her programs. Now, I could get the replay the next day, but I knew the benefit of being there live. There's just always something different with a live event rather than catching the replay. I think it's just that little bit more interactive. And yet there was something else that I felt was conflicting with it, which was I hadn't been sleeping well, and I really, really wanted to get some sleep in. And I sat with it and I just went, okay, give me the answer. What's in my highest good right now? It turned out the session with my girlfriend was, and you know what, after that session, one, I felt a really big shift in what we were working on. And two, I ended up having the best night's sleep. But what was in my highest good at that moment was to go into that healing group and receive that beautiful healing energy. Now, there was part of me going, oh, did I make the right decision? But as soon as I was sitting there and having that healing energy wash over me, I knew I had made the most self-loving decision I could make. So understanding that is really, really important as well. This also helps us tap into what I call intimacy, into me, I see. The more deeply we can connect into our spirit, to our soul, and to know ourselves at a very, very deep level, the more intimately we know ourselves, the more intimately we can connect with the world around us. And I think that is really, really important, especially in business where we are solving people's problems. We are being of service to them. We are helping them make forward leaps and bounds in whatever it is that is our little niche, is our purpose of being here. So then we get into the power of language, which is just a huge, huge, huge part of my work. And even people who have worked in this industry for a while, I see a lot of healers and coaches in my clinic, people who work in other modalities as well as the same modalities as me. And even with them, I often pick up this language or these language issues, words that we say that we have been so conditioned to say, but that change our vibrational frequency. And I do the same in my healing sessions. As soon as I become client, I will say things in a way and I'll hear it coming out of my mouth and be like, why am I phrasing it that way? That's not the highest vibration. The reason in healing sessions we often do it is to show what's sitting in the subconscious. So there's not to be any judgment about it, but it's just the more you increase your capacity to listen and understand the words which you are saying is phenomenal. And even in that, I caught myself using the word understand, which I actually really do not like, because understanding is standing under somebody else's authority. It is submitting to their knowledge over your own. So I do prefer the word comprehend. So just to pick myself up there and practice what I preach. So when we think about the power of language, we are all, I'm sure, aware, or those of us who were raised in religious backgrounds, of that quote, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, God has a high vibration. It's the same as Om, which is the sound of the universe. It is the same as I am. And we call it spelling because we cast spells with the words that we use and the words that we use to interact with other people with. Anything that we put after the words I am basically casts spells on ourselves. So we need to be really, really careful. If your I ams are constantly followed by beating yourself up, self-criticism, self-harm often, then that's that vibration that you're going to keep chunking into. And it's going to be that downward spiral. Whereas if you're using words that are more positive after I am, and words that you believe in truth are you, the higher that vibration will become and the more it will be the upward spiral. I love the quote, and I actually wrote it in my book, that there are not enough words to describe the feelings of the soul. So I do often work with metaphors, I work with pictorial language, trying to really bring the light and the dark and the texture and the depth to what we are saying. But understanding our language is really important. A really good example is when people come in to see me in clinic and I ask them what they want. They will give me a whole list of what they don't want. I don't want to be working long hours. I don't want to keep waking up in the night. I don't want to feel lethargic. And I'll repeat to them, so what do you want? And it can take a while, depending on how conditioned people are, for them to be able to turn that list of don't wants into a list of wants. It is fascinating once you start to listen for it. And even words like try, might, should, can't, ought, they are stress creating words. If you just feel into them, when you say, I should do that, oh, it's heavy. And as that saying goes, we've got to stop shoulding all over ourselves, because it is damaging and it does limit where we're at and what we can achieve. So being really super careful of the language that you're using, understanding that spelling aspect. What spells are you trying to cast with your clients, with your family, with any interaction that you have? Can you feel into when they're higher vibration versus lower vibration? Another example is that our brain will always remember the last words and it doesn't understand don't. So if you say, I don't want to do this, your brain will remember do this. So making sure that we phrase it in the more positive way and allowing that higher vibration to set in. Really, really important. The other thing to really be aware of is when we use absolutes, everybody, nobody, always, never. Just the example I use here is when you say to your partner, you never do the dishes. Well, never means what? Never picked up a spoon out of the dishwasher or put anything in the dishwasher. And what those words mean, if I tell my partner, you never help with the dishes, what that also infers is I always do it. But there will always be examples that we can find where absolutes are incorrect. So thinking about those words really carefully. The other word I'm really conscious of is using but. Often but is followed by justifications, by excuses, by lower vibration energy. Sometimes it is the perfectly correct word to use. When I replace it with and, it allows space and it allows movement. If I say, I really wanted to go to that event, but it goes into that lower vibration. But if I say I really wanted to go to that event and at the time I made the decision that was right for me to not go, or I chose to rest instead, or I chose to go to the gym, or whatever it is, it's putting more power in you and in your hands. So thinking really carefully through our messages, whether they be business or personal, and understanding these words that really do create a huge amount of stress and tension in the body, or expansion and growth. Now I want to talk a little bit about emotional fluency. Now, because I'm not on the slideshow, I'm going to just explain a little bit before I go on to this next slide. Most people can only name 3 emotions. They can say angry, sad, or happy, otherwise known as mad, sad, or glad. But there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of emotional states. There are feelings that we call emotions, and emotions we call feelings, and sensations we call feelings, and all of these different things. I love the idea of emotional fluency because for me, it's like having a full orchestra where all of the instruments can play their part. A lot of clients come into me and say they want to be happy, but happiness for me is a bit of a bland word. What does happy mean? And if I was just one-dimensionally happy all the time, I'd miss out on sadness and grief and joy and peace and love. And part of our job as human beings is to really have a full emotional experience. The other thing is sitting into heart coherence, so really feeling into as much of that emotion as we can, staying in our bodies to experience the emotion rather than trying to get up into our head and thinking our way through the emotion. Because when we do that, we will often fight against the emotions that are showing themselves to us, even though our emotions are all there to tell us what's going on, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. When we also look at emotional fluency, when we acknowledge our emotion and we validate it, okay, I'm feeling angry. Well, why am I feeling angry? Somebody violated my boundaries, or I'm feeling afraid, or I'm feeling disrespected or unloved. It's actually a really good reason to feel angry. Now, do I want to shift out of that? Do I have time to process the anger, or do I want to stay in it and question it a little bit more? You have a choice. But I find that emotions are often like toddlers pulling your sleeve, mum, 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 mum. And there's this constancy until you address them and you give them the attention. I remember when my children used to do it, as soon as I looked at them and said, yes, darling, what do you want? They'd often run off because they'd been acknowledged and validated. They felt like they were real. And great, now I can go off and mum's there and there's this safe anchor. So it can be a really useful thing. Acknowledge your emotion, validate, why is it there? Why might I be feeling this? And then decide either to shift out of it or stay in it for a little bit longer. And so this is a quote from my book, Divine Messy Human. Emotional regulation is not about not feeling or expressing emotions. It is about not letting the emotional state have power over you. And often when we acknowledge and validate our feelings, it allows that emotion to flow through without resistance. And it's true, we do have to feel it to heal it. A lot of people avoid going into healing and therapeutic situations because they're afraid of those emotions that are sitting there. But I can tell you that even the most powerful and potent emotions, when you are working with the right people, it gives you so much power over your own life and over your own existence. Now, I want to talk to you a bit about boundaries and self-compassion. And this has taken me quite a long time to learn about. And funnily enough, I have just released a podcast episode about boundaries versus standards. And so my idea on this even is changing. And that's part of what I love about the work that I'm doing is I'm constantly learning and evolving. There is always new things to learn. And it excites me to learn new concepts. So a boundary is a line that says, this is okay and this is not okay. But often what happens with boundaries is they are my expectations of how you will treat me. Now, a standard is the way I expect to be treated. It is how I behave in the world. It is my own value and standard for my own behavior. I can't judge anybody else based on my standards. Boundaries are external to ourselves. They are about me putting a line in the sand. You know, if my partner gets abusive, I'm not going to stand for that. One, I value myself and my standard of how I want to be treated is higher than that. But two, I will put in a boundary there if he is not respecting my values and standards. And having self compassion in this is really, really important because we're not always going to get it right. We're not always going to display our highest standards out to the world. We're not always going to get the boundary right. But the important thing is working out what is okay with you and what's not okay with you, and finding healthy consequences for boundary violations. It might be, less access to you, less access to your emotional self for a little while you take some time or space to deal. Whatever it is that you feel is a healthy consequence so that you can heal from that and also reset your standards of how you want to be treated, and then look at any boundaries that you might need to put in place. And what we need to remember as well is self-love is not all just rainbows and unicorns and fluffy memes and the social media commodification. It is hard decisions, strong boundaries, deeply knowing ourselves, and being discerning about what's right and wrong for us right now in this exact moment. And that is part of that self-compassion. Again, going back to that question, what is in my highest good right now? When we look at balancing opposing principles, we all have masculine and feminine within us. It is the light and the dark, the yin and the yang, the Shiva and Shakti. It is not about gender, it is about the archetypes. So when we think about the masculine aspect, think about the sex organs, it's out there, it's projective, it's visible. It's all the stuff that we can see and feel and do in the outside world. Thinking about the feminine sex organs, it's hidden, it's receptive, it's more mysterious. It's that the feelings rather than the doings, the being rather than the doing. So one of the things I want you to think about is being able to give and receive. So the giving is the masculine and the receiving is the feminine. But to receive, we need to be able to be vulnerable. And that can be really tricky because we've been taught not to be vulnerable in this world. So I just want you starting to think about, what are you giving, but also what are you allowing yourself to receive? Can you balance that masculine and feminine principle so that you're not always stuck in doing mode, that you have a chance to be still, to rest, to recharge and replenish yourself, so that you are really, I guess, honoring both parts of yourself. And when we are perfectly in balance between that masculine and feminine aspect, we are in union with our spirit, with our consciousness, and with our psychological and spiritual wholeness. So it is this really beautiful way of honoring the total part of who and what we are. Finally, we're looking at self-responsibility, which is one of the hardest things, to be honest. But we need to ask ourselves, and this question can be really tough. It's certainly brought a lot of tears from a lot of my clients. And before I started doing the work, it brought some tears from me as well. The first question that had me realize I needed to leave my marriage was, I asked myself, am I living the life I would want for my children? And my answer then was an emphatic no. And it became the impetus that I needed to make some really hard decisions, but also to turn my life around. So asking yourself, are you living the kind of life you would want your children to live? Are you in the job you'd like them to be in? Are you in the kind of relationship you'd want for them? And it can be really challenging to look into that. But again, with the right professional help or with the right support, it can also be the best decision you make. One of the things to think about as well is flipping responsibility around. So responsibility, which can feel quite heavy, becomes having the ability to respond, moving from reactivity into responsiveness. And that is a really powerful place from which we can live our life. Thinking about yes, no, and maybe. If we ask ourselves a question, as soon as Rose put it out to me to speak today, I was a hell yes. It was a definite yes. There was no no, there was no maybe. Maybes suck our energy. They are things that hang around in the background and take up a lot of brain power, even if we don't think we're thinking about them. So the quicker we can get into a yes or no, and feel into what feels right for us is really, really important. The maybe will suck our energy unless it is a not right now, I'm going to park that and wait for more information. So coming again from that self-compassion and self-kindness that you're not always going to get it right, and we're here to learn from our mistakes. Bringing in more celebration, play, and fun is also a really big part of self-responsibility. We need to celebrate our wins more. Often we are in this thing that I call the happiness of pursuit. We're constantly going and going and going, trying to find our next thing of happiness rather than sitting in celebrating what we've just achieved. And remember to have more play and fun. Just because we're older doesn't mean we need to stop playing. And finally, I want to let you know that you are exactly where you need to be on your path. Because if you were supposed to be somewhere different, you'd be there. So what do you need to do next? Is there something that you can use from today that will help you to grow and evolve and change? And if you ever get stuck, the other question I ask, apart from what is in your highest good right now, is what would love do? It is a beautiful question to have in your arsenal. What would love do in this moment? Because love is the highest vibration we've got. So thank you very, very much.
And then, Kate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to be here. I haven't put my tooth in.
I am just sorry that I was a messy human today. Apologies for that, but sending you all lots and lots of love. I'm just so excited to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you. And because I know we've known each other for a really long time, and I just need to say to you that you have improved so much. You were such a shy little wallflower about 4 years ago, and look at you now. You're an amazing human.
Thank you. That's so sweet. It's lovely to hear. So I really appreciate it. And I'm loving watching you develop and grow as well. So again, thank you so much for the work you're bringing into the world.
Thanks. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.